All right, guys, we are back with another episode of the Masters in Motion podcast. We're excited to have a guest this week. Rick and I are here, and we've got Jason Ansley. Jason we're going to have him tell his story. So I'm not going to do a typical Rick intro because I just want to hear from you, Jason, on your whole backstory. But what I did want to say was that I do remember competing against you because we're about the same age. Is that right, Jason?
Correct. I'm a year older, but basically, yeah.
Okay. So Jason, historically, I've always had those athletes that I'm nervous about, or it's just in specific events, I'm nervous about them, especially. And back in 2020, we were competing at Legends in Phoenix, and it rained for the first time ever, and they had to cancel a clean and jerk event, which I wasn't upset about, but I know you were. You did come back for redemption in 2021 in San Diego, and I think lifted the entire house for your total weight. It was just a no-brainer. Jason's going to crush that. 2022, we competed again at Legends, and then you made some transitions out and were in some brand new roles. But all that to say, I enjoyed competing with you. You were a heck of an athlete, still a heck of a human being, and probably a pretty good athlete, although I don't know how you have time for fitness now. But Let's go back. So I do want to preface. So the reason we have Jason on here, guys, in this intro is that Jason is a big part of the World Fitness Project. And it's something that Rick and I had questions about. We've talked about it a little bit, off the record and a little bit in our podcast. But man, we just wanted to hear from someone that is in the know on this thing to catch us up. So we're going to get to that, Jason, and your role there, which is a significant role. Before that, take us back, man. When did you start CrossFit? How did you get into this thing? You don't have to be abbreviated on this. We'd love to hear your story.
This episode is powered by Thirdzy, your go-to for game-changing sleep recovery. Imagine hitting your workouts harder and waking up feeling unstoppable. That's what Thirdzy's PM Recovery Collagen does for me. It's like pre-workout, but for your sleep, fueling your body's active recovery processes without any melatonin or sedatives. Just one scoop before bed supports deeper, more restorative sleep so you can crush your fitness goals. Ready to experience the best rest and recovery? Visit Thirdzy.com and transform your nights into recovery power hours. Thirdzy, because sleep is the ultimate recovery tool. That's THIRDZY.com. Save 20% with code JASONZZZ. Let's get into the show.
Yeah, I have a very interesting story. So I was a college baseball player. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was a state athlete in baseball. Basketball was probably my best, favorite sport. But, when you wind up 5'10" in 7th grade and then 5'10" in 12th grade, you got to change, right? So what became, this vision of what I wanted to do sports wise, changed as everybody kept growing and I stopped. But I still loved basketball, was my original love. Grew up playing baseball. I didn't start playing football till high school really, but we actually wound up winning state championship, and we became one of the Webb City High School is one of the It has the most state championships in Missouri state history. And we kind of started that, which I'm kind of proud of that, and had an opportunity to go play sports in colleges, both football and baseball. But baseball was really where I had a better shot at doing something, and I did. So I went and played at Missouri Southern State University in Joplin, Missouri, which was my hometown. We're attached right to Webb City. So that's kind of my background athletically, and then stepped away from competition. Once college baseball was over, there's that void that everybody that's been a competitor in that world hits, that you kind of just, it's like, the Will Ferrell, I don't know what to do with my hands type of a thing. And so in all of those years, going to the gym and, you're just trying to figure something out and raising a family. I had 2 girls. I got married. I've been married for almost 26 years. So we've been married a long time and through a lot of journeys and stuff like that. I was the director of sales and marketing for a company that I traveled a lot for 18 years. I started CrossFit in 2012. So I've been in it now, I guess it's 13 years this September. Mm-hmm. Again, I probably like most people here, I had a buddy invite me. He's just like, man, you got to try this. He's like, I know you're competitive. I know you're struggling to figure things out. My weight had kind of gotten up a little bit, and just life was hard. And if you don't have that out, um, and I really, you hear the phrase a lot that CrossFit changed my life. And I would say I would kind of shift a little bit on that as I've gotten older and understood that it was really the men and women, mostly the men in my life that changed my life. They encouraged me. They worked out beside me. They taught me how to do what we were doing. And so the community actually is what changed my life. CrossFit was the brand that introduced me to a whole new community that I did not know existed. So that was awesome. Worked out in an affiliate like everybody kind of did. And then came home one day for work, told my wife, I can't do this anymore. I'm traveling. My girls are growing up. I'm not affecting anybody's life. And it was really bothering me. And she's like, well, and she was a stay-at-home mom, which is scary to come home and tell a stay-at-home mom that you can't do this anymore because, women love to be secure. And I insecurity on her. And she understood that. She understood me very well. And she's just asked me, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I want to run a gym because being involved in the gym that we were in, we kind of became coaches in the gym. I got my level 1 before I ever even coached a class, not because anybody asked me to, because I wanted to learn more.
Yeah, way to advance.
It was a way to advance. And I loved fitness. I loved the space. And I just loved helping people. And I took a girl under my wing at the gym that we were at. She just needed help. And she was just one of those people that's just like, she'd run through a brick wall if I asked her to. And I was like, so that was like my first athlete. So I got spoiled because I started coaching a girl on the side. I was noticing real change in my attitude towards life in general. I was becoming a better person because I was helping somebody else. And my job just didn't do that. And there's nothing wrong with the job that I had. It was the company was great, but I was a void. I was constantly chasing the dollar and not giving back to really, I wasn't helping anybody. I was helping myself. So to kind of jump ahead a little bit, we decided that we wanted to make a change. And I resigned from the director of sales and marketing that I'd been at for 18 years. And we were going to go open a gym. We were going to go take our money on our savings account and we were going to grow it organically, which hindsight was really stupid to even think that would work. But my wife was like, this is what you want to do. I trust you. So I went in to resign with the owner of the company who was I was his right-hand man. Like we were not only was our right-hand man, but we had become friends. Like he had really blessed our family. And it was a very difficult decision. And I just told him, I'm not happy. Like, I'm not doing you any good. I'm not honoring you as a business owner. I'm not providing what you expect from me. And I need a change. And he understood and he just looked at me. He's like, I need you to give me a year. And I was like, okay. Cause I was expecting to get fired that day. So my wife was waiting at home with me for a beer on the front porch. Like we were going to celebrate this change. It was going to be something we were going to jump in together. And this was at like 11 in the morning. I didn't text her, didn't call her. I was really struggling. So I went back into his office that afternoon and I said, for what you've done for me, I'm going to give you a year, but we're going to be, this year is going to be about me transitioning out of the company. And he agreed with that process. So I went home and my wife was sitting on the front porch and she's like, pins and needles, how did it go? And I said, well, I promised him another year. And after we went through the shock and process of that, she understood it was probably the right thing to do for our family. So I took the next year and just started in the background, started figuring that out. And through that process, had a couple of guys that decided to go in with me on the gym. And we purchased the gym locally. The year came and went. We resigned, opened up our first gym. And within 2 years, we owned 4. So we went from 0 to 100 like really fast. We opened the gym. We had 55 members. And within 18 months, we were over 300. And so it was just like whirlwind, pre-COVID, CrossFit going crazy, 2018, the peak of what everything was happening went really well. And so we did that. And just honestly, we loved it. I was being fulfilled with coaching. I was learning every day about athletes. I took that one athlete that I'd started with and on the side at our old gym, and she made regionals her very first year trying. And so, what a learning curve that was as a coach, because I got spoiled super fast. And then
This is easy, right?
yeah, this is easy. Like, what? I don't know why more people aren't doing this. And so yeah, we went through that process, got to 4 gyms, needless to say, ran ourselves a little bit thin. So, personally for my wife and I, it was a hard time because I was now investing in 500 people's lives. And although we were affecting change, we weren't affecting it well. We went from affecting it well to going too thin, and just learning that process of how do I hand this off to somebody and trust them to do what we do. And so that was a hard life lesson for us, but excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I apologize, but we did it. And we had a gym in Bentonville, Arkansas, Pittsburgh, Kansas, Carthage, Missouri, and Joplin, Missouri. And yeah, and just we had competitive athletes all over the place. I wound up taking another athlete. The transition happened to sanctionals. We all remember that weird season.
Mm-hmm.
So she qualified for the Mayhem Classic. Very gifted athlete, took her there, got to compete. Yeah, it was actually back before Tia had ever won. Tia was actually competing. So just really cool stories about athletes succeeding. And then, of course, my wife was running a functional fitness class that was running 40 or 50 people in a class. So she was succeeding. All at the same time, we have 2 little girls at home that are like growing up through the gym process. And so life was going really fast for us. Fitness was a massive part of my life. Took on another athlete that eventually took under my wing and got him to semifinals, and it just kind of started rolling. So I was coaching some athletes on the side. I was online coaching. I was coaching in our gym. I was managing multiple gyms, and that process was just overwhelming. And behind the scenes, we started a competition called Monster Games, just as an in-person competition for our gym to raise money because we needed new plates, right? I needed new weights, and you just did the competition. And so that was growing as well in the background. So we've got all of these balls in the air spinning. I'm doing a bad job as a husband, bad job as a friend, and dumping everything into the gym, and probably doing a bad job as a coach because you just learning through that process. I wanted to be the best at everything. And therefore I became, half of probably what I should have been, but my heart was in the right place. And at the same time, I'm trying to compete. I had a goal. I wanted to compete at the Masters games as well. I had a goal. My scores were terrible. I had so many holes in my fitness when I started, and strength was always a good thing, but like I wanted to be better at gymnastics. I wanted to learn to walk on my hands. I wanted to be efficient in all these things. And so, I had one of my coaches that is to this day, he coaches me, and he's one of my co-event directors, and he's a big part of my life. He just started helping me, and I qualified for Granite Games. They took 10 athletes to Granite Games in 2018. That was my first step into the spotlight. That's where I met Rick. I met Bob Jennings there. Just great group of guys, super nervous to go compete, realizing that, man, when I went to show up, these 10 guys that were in my age division, one, I couldn't believe how good everybody was at our age. And then 2, just how they all embraced me. They didn't really know me because I had never really competed as an individual before. And I just feel like that kind of started shifting things for me about what it meant to be an athlete. And I started focusing a little bit more on how I treated my athletes at the competitions that we're doing and in my gym, because I love the community division, everything, but I thrive with the elite athlete. I just do. It's what I want to do. And so competed there, did great. Best that I ever finished was 24th in the world in our age division. That was probably at my peak of fitness, and wound up hurting my neck in semifinals really bad, and had to withdraw from I guess not semifinal, age group, AGOQ, whatever it was called. Yeah, so I kind of that season I was really ready to go. I hurt my neck, which again, everybody gets hurt, right? And so I kind of fell into that thing where I just couldn't pull through it, and continued to kind of dabble in that and make my way, and competed in 2020. got second in the Legends qualifier, went and competed in person. That's where I met Jason. My wife met Jason's wife, and I'll never forget. She comes home after the first day. I knew Jason from afar, just from watching him compete from 40-year-old division. I knew he had aged up, and just really respected who he was as an athlete. But at the same time, like, I wanted a piece of that to know, like, where do I stand? That's just who I am. Like, I don't mind getting beat as long as I come out and give everything I have and get beat. And that's basically what Jason does to you, right? Like, you give,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you give him everything you have, and he's top. And so then, therefore, like, there's just this mutual thing of like, okay, that's where I am, and that's where my mark is now, and this is what I have to work on. And that's why I love the sport, because there's no hiding. Like, you can't hide. Like, I can be the strongest athlete in my age division forever, but ultimately I can't hide from what the number is at the end of the weekend next to my name. Right. And that's been the best lesson that I've learned so far about this, and why I love it, because you are a product of what you put in and what you produce. And so being able to do that, I think I finished seventh that year at Legends, and I was really disappointed in myself, because I thought I was better than that. And but again, the number next to your name doesn't lie, right? So I took that with me, and then went and competed in 2021, finished in the top 10 again in San Diego at 2021. And then now I'm 49. I'm in the oldest age in the age division, and decided at that point, like everybody does, like, right, and now my goal is, when I'm 50, I'm going to make the games, right? And so that's just kind of what I actually continued getting stronger. The best year I ever had numbers wise was the year I was 49. I clean and jerk 335. I back squatted 485. I'm benching 405. I'm front squatting 415. So my numbers strength wise continued to grow. And I was just really prepping myself to do that. And lo and behold, Bob Jennings and Joe Linton set me down at Mayhem 2022 and said, "Hey, we want to talk to you about something when you get home." And I'm like, okay. And so I'm just like, hey, I competed at Legends, kind of got my ass kicked a little bit in 2022 as an old man, and just realized that, like, if I'm really going to do this, next year is going to have to look different. And we were making some changes in ownership of the gym, and shedding some gyms that weren't doing well, and kind of reducing some of that footprint. And my wife knew that, like, this is what I do. I compete. I have a goal for what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to just make the games at that point. Now I felt like I had my nose rubbed in the dirt enough that I knew what it took, and I wanted to stand. Rick, you made the games when you turned 50, and I watched you go through that, and I'm like, I want to go compete against Rick, and I want to stand on the podium. Like, that's what came for me. And Bob and Joe asked me if they could have a phone call, so we get home from Mayhem, and I sit down with them, and they just said, "Hey, what would it look like for you to join our team?"
And you're like,
and I'm like, well, that's interesting, to go join the Legends team. I love Legends, and in my opinion, it's the best Masters comp that exists. I love those guys. They were so good to me. Bob was so good to me. They just through the whole process, they've been a big supporter of Monster Games. We wound up becoming a qualifier for Legends.
Yeah, in-person affiliate or in-person qualifier.
And so I respected them a lot. And so I went home and told my wife, I was like, "Hey, this is what Bob's asking. Like, what do you think?" And she's like, "Well, what does that mean?" Like, I don't know. She's like, "Well, does that mean like they're wanting to hire you?" And I'm like, "No, I think it's like a transition thing. Like, what would it look like to take a bigger role, come in?" So we kind of started talking through that. And I'm like, I can't compete in Legends anymore. If I'm on that team, no big deal. I still have the games, right? So we're walking down that path. Well, that's when Dave Castro calls Bob in July of that year, right after I had told him, "I want to join your guys' team. I'm in. Let's get together and talk about what does that mean." Dave Castro calls Bob and says, "Hey, I think we want to make a shift and move the Masters games off to somebody. Are you guys interested?" So my decision to go work for Bob all of a sudden became my decision to retire. I mean, honestly, that's really what it was, because I had these grandiose dreams. And so I went home and told Heidi what happened. And she's just like, "Are you going to be okay not competing?" And I didn't know. I didn't know if I was going to be okay not competing or not, because I was physically at a point that as strange as it sounds, at that point, I was probably, you know, peaking to the point where physically I felt the best I'd felt in a long time. And I really wanted to make my 50-year-old year special. So that was a hard decision, but it was just one of those things that I think God puts in front of you that you have to decide, like, if I put myself in this position above what I originally set out to start a gym because I wanted to affect change in other people. And now all of a sudden my big goal is I want to be this in the space. And I think God sometimes chuckles a little bit and says, "Hey, I kind of have another idea for you." And so we made the decision, like, "Hey, I'm going to be okay. Like, this is healthy for me." And so we stepped away from competing, joined Joe and Bob, and it was great. I have zero complaints about it at all. They have become friends of mine. I would say legitimate friends. Joe and I, to this day, communicate with each other about things, even though I don't work for him anymore. And we had a great time at Legends the very first year stepping into that role, knowing what was coming with the Masters Games. I took on a large role with the Masters Games. That whole year, the whole season was awesome. And Monster Games, again, at the same time in the background, is continuing to get bigger. So we're now upwards of 900 athletes competing. So I'm kind of living in both worlds. And then at the same time, an opportunity came for us to say, "Hey, I think the gym space and the event space can't exist together anymore, because I'm not giving the people that are members of my gym, I'm not giving them everything of me." And so as I'm maturing through the process of, we're now in year 7 of owning gyms, year 7 of Monster Games, and really year 1 of working for somebody else, and knowing that, okay, the time has come to make a decision. And so my business partner and I separated, went our separate ways. He took the gyms, I took Monster Games, and went to go work with Bob and Joe. So I became 100%, my livelihood came from events, and learned a lot, and just threw myself into making sure that when I threw an event, that the athlete came first, the money came second, and making that experience for them was the utmost important thing, because that's what I originally set out to do in this space, was I wanted to affect change. And so I always put that in front of every decision that we ever made. And so we worked through that. I felt like we did a really good job of that. And we got done at the Masters Games in Birmingham. Huge life lesson, huge experience, learned so much about what we can do better, and was committed to making sure those steps were followed. And I also sit on the executive board of Desert City Classic, which is a large competition in Phoenix, Arizona. And so through all of that, I helped them get that going. And again, I find myself in this position where I am learning a craft at 50 years old that I have now understood. This is really the path that I was supposed to be going down. The rest was just a teaching tool to get me there and to prepare me for that. And I'm sitting in setting up, working, putting a rig together, doing all those things for Desert City Classic, just kind of overseeing some of that stuff. And Ryan Husband sends me a text. So Ryan owns LRX Apparel. He's been a sponsor of mine in the past. He's participated in the space for a long time. And I get a kind of a text of, kind of out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, are you in Tempe for Desert City Classic?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Would you go to dinner with me tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I know Ryan, but we've never broke bread together." So I thought it was a little weird, but at the same time, I'm like, he was probably wanting to buy some stuff for Masters, CrossFit Games, and Legends. And I'm like, "Yeah, we need to sit down and probably talk anyway." So, and I said, "Yeah, what time?" And he's like, "Hey," "Come by the booth," because he was at Desert City. He's just like, "I need you to sign an NDA." And I was like, "Oh, this isn't dinner. Something else is going on." So this was like November 7th. And so walked by his booth as he's setting it up. And I was like, "Yeah, I was like, is it okay if I bring my wife? Like, she's here with me." And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, bring her, but I need you to sign this NDA because we're going to talk about something." I'm like, "Okay." So I told my wife, "Hey, well, I've got to sign an NDA before dinner." So I did not know Ryan was a part of WFP. So I don't know at this point what's happening. So we go to dinner, and he just said, "Hey, do you mind if I just ask you to share your philosophy of sport?" And I was like, Sure. And so I did. I told him where my heart was and all of the failures that I've had in the past. And I wasn't an awesome gym owner at times, even though my heart was in the right place. And I learned from all those experiences. And I believe that, my job of hosting events is to make sure that that athlete, from the moment they get out of the car and walk in the venue and compete to the moment they go home, is the best 3 or 4 days of their year. Like, that's my goal. I don't care if I'm the CrossFit Games, World Fitness Project, Monster Games. I don't care what it is. That's my goal. And so I kind of explained that to him, and he laid out, he's like, well, that's really good to hear because this is what we're doing. He laid out World Fitness Project to the best of what he could at that time. And he's like, we're wanting to have an event in May. And I'm like, there's no way. You can't, like, I'm an event director. I'm telling you right now, it's November. Like, you guys are trying to do something that doesn't make any. So I pushed back really hard on what they were to do. And I was like, hey, forgive me, but I'm going to poke some holes in this right now. I don't know if this is a job interview or you're just bouncing ideas off of me, but I'm going to be pretty blunt. And so we had a really good back and forth, and just really respected what they were doing. And so I left that. We kind of shook hands and said, hey, I think we're going to kind of agree to go a different path. So Ryan and I basically left. We shook hands, and he just said, hey, if you don't mind, like, let's keep the door open. Like, I really appreciate your candidness. You're somebody that I respect in the space, and we'd like to keep that door open. I was like, hey, that's great. I appreciate that. Thanks for the conversation. And we left and went home that night, and I couldn't sleep. And it was just driving me crazy because I was like, this is actually a really good idea. Mm-hmm. I'm super interested in this. And then not knowing I was like, did I just screw up? Like, did I just like push off something that was a unique opportunity? And, but at the same time, I'm involved with Joe and Bob at Legends, and those guys are my friends, and I respect them. And we're doing the Masters CrossFit Games, and we're getting ready to move to a new venue. I knew at that time we were going to Columbus, and mm-hmm. I'm just like, well, I don't know. We'll just kind of see what happens. And I kind of left it alone. And, Ryan would text me and just say, hey, what do you think about this? The team and I were talking, and I'm just like, yeah, I was like, not giving him a lot of information, but at least like I said, he wanted to leave the door open. So I did. And I got a text from him after a couple of weeks that just said, hey, would you be interested in hopping on a call and meeting the entire team and kind of just sharing with them what you shared with me, the philosophy, and we've actually kind of agreed with you. It looks like we are going to do 2 events in the US. And so we want to re-engage that conversation with you because now we feel like we do need somebody US based. And I was like, hey, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So again, we jumped on a call, had about an hour call with them, got to meet the owners, met the whole team, got to meet Will. I already knew Will. Mm-hmm. He competed at the Masters CrossFit Games, but, not on a business side. So got to understand a little bit about, his vision from his mouth. And we just we hit it off immediately. Will and I just agreed with everything he was saying about taking care of the athlete, creating a series where every point matters because it carries on and it doesn't start over. You don't have a season that's one and done. If you're sick on a weekend, you're not screwed for the whole year. If you get a bad rep on a video, your season's not over. So explaining and walking through all of that, like, I was super interested. We had a great conversation, and it kind of ended, and they're just like, well, they said, I think we're kind of at the point where we need to know what it would look like for you to come on board. And I was like, well, I own Monster Game. Yeah. I own a 4-person team competition called Heart of America. It's 14 years old, going on 15. I work for Bob and Joe. I work for the Masters CrossFit Games. I work for Legends. So, it's going to take a lot. Like, I need a commitment to understand where we're going because I have to resign something that's stable going into something that's not stable. And I'm going to have to hire somebody to help me with Monster Games. My wife's going to have to take a larger role. But we're in a great season of life. I have a daughter that's married, doesn't live at home. I have another daughter that's in college. We're empty nesters. I'm now in a season of life that I don't have to invest in my children every day after school. If I am home working on the computer late at night, I'm not affecting anybody's life in my family. And so I kind of told them what that would look like. And they said, let us talk about it as a team and we'll call you back with an offer. And so I said, okay. So, this whole time, my wife and I are in Arizona because we went out there for Desert City and we stayed through Legends. So we were in the middle of a 6-week vacation, for
Wow.
lack of a better word. Yeah.
Nice.
Just enjoying being empty nesters. And I'm building monster games in the background and we're getting ready to go with the qualifier. So I'm working on marketing. My daughter runs my social media for me on monster games. So her and I are communicating about that. And so we're just kind of working in the background and that's kind of the season of life that we were in, just in a really good, healthy spot as husband and wife, healthy spot with our kids. The business is good. We're in a position where I don't have to live in Joplin if I don't want to. So things are just really kind of started turning a corner. And I've gotten over the sadness of not being a gym owner anymore. Like that was very hard for me to not have that in my life every day. And about 15 minutes later, they called me back and gave me an offer. And that we basically couldn't say no to. And so I asked them to draw me up a contract. I had my attorney review it and kind of sat on it for a week. And we wanted to really make sure this was the right thing for us because now I am 2 days away from Legends kicking off that weekend. And, these guys are my friends. I mean, I knew I was going to see Jason. I knew that I wanted to make sure that if I left in a way that honored the guys that brought me here and the athletes that were choosing to come compete. I wanted to make sure I did that the right way. And so I took that offer, sat on it for a week, accepted it, and gave everything I had to Legends that weekend. And at the end of the weekend, Joe and I are standing there as the venue's being tore down. I said, hey, I need to talk to you, and explained to him the role that I was taking. And it was gut wrenching for me, quite honestly, because those guys have been nothing but awesome to me, and I respect both of them very much. I love their wives. I love the friends that I've met through them, and it was hard. It was a hard conversation to have. And if you know Joe, like it's pretty hard to see Joe ruffled. He just turned and looked at me. He's like, dude, that's awesome. And he gave me a big hug. And he was like, I'm super proud of you. He goes, you're going to do a great job. He goes, whatever I can do to help, let me know. And it's just like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And I felt like I exited that relationship in a very healthy way, which was, I may not have done when I was 45, And
that
so,
doesn't always happen. So you're
it doesn't. And I was very worried about it.
For that to happen.
Yeah, this is a small space. And so I felt really good about that. And he even sent my wife a text and just said, hey, I know this was hard for you and Jason. And I just want you to know you did a great job. We're going to miss you guys and we wish you nothing but the best. So, that conversation was over and we were able to exit. And then it was that was Monday night, December 15th. My first day with WFP was Monday, December 16th. Will's calling me. He's like, hey man, this is all that I want. I have the athletes. I need a city and I need a venue for 2 American tour stops. And I just need you to focus on that. So that basically became my life immediately. So we drove to Arizona from Joplin because we were there for 6 weeks. So got in the car on Monday, said goodbye to Joe and the team and started driving home. And I lived on the phone all the way to Joplin, just working, talking to cities, the relationships that I built with Monster Games, understanding where we needed to be as a company in WFP and just rolling through that. So that's my transition to World Fitness Project.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a lot of words.
Hey,
great.
That has got to be one of the best stories. You hold the record for Jason and myself not asking one question, I think. That is awesome. So Jason and I have a bunch, yes. And we want to talk specifics on World Fitness, but just the idea of you, as you said, to follow on working the phones on your way back to Joplin, did they give you a budget or an idea of a size that you needed so that you had some idea of what you were chasing to secure for 2 American cities? I mean, or were they just here's the number of
Yeah.
athletes, and here's the dates we're kind of looking at.
That's a
Good luck.
great question.
Have fun.
We didn't even have dates. Like that was up to me to figure out what fit.
What was,
I'm the one that runs events, and it was my job to understand how we can get an event in, juggling what was happening with the in-person qualifiers for the games, which had not been announced. And so part of it is a balancing of like it's going to appear like we're ruffling feathers, even though we're not, but still trying to honor what the system is currently still in place. So doing all of that and just choosing those cities, choosing those dates, being wise about those things, and the idea knowing like there is no tomorrow. We're hitting a home run with Tour Event 1, period. We're going to have the 40 best athletes in the world competing in the space of fitness. We're going to bring in the 20 best challengers in the world to compete against them in the space of fitness. And then we're going to have another 40 challengers behind them that are next in line. And so we're going to have 100 individual athletes that are in our space going to be arguably the best pool of talent ever competing in this space. And so that means we are committed to making this work long term. This is not a, hey, we're going to try this year. That was made very clear to me. We have excellent funding. We have a long runway to make this work. This is not a flash in the pan type of a deal. It's not like a, hey, if Tour Event doesn't win, we're going to fade away. I can tell you guys, as at 51 years old, I wouldn't have taken the position if I thought it was just going to be a 1-year deal. If it didn't work, oh, well, we'll go do something else. That's not where we are. We're here to stay. And we've made a big splash. And that's really the commitment that they made to me. And that honestly, we made to the athletes that signed. I mean, we had athletes that signed pro contracts. They're getting paid. They have pro cards. They don't have to qualify. We pay for their travel. We pay for their lodging.
Wow.
They don't pay for registration. Like, this is a pro sport. So
sounds very rogue-like, like the Rogue model, where accommodations and travel, and
it is. The Rogue only has one event. We have 3. So what Rogue does for 1, we're doing for 3. But yeah, it's a little bit more like a like what the Live Golf model is, or the F1 series is. And that's really what we're doing, is we're creating a season that every point matters. Those points roll over to the next event. It's an accumulation of the season. And when the season is over, going back to where I was in 2020, when I was upset with the number next to my name, there's no argument, right? Whoever has the top 20 numbers next to their name, they get a pro card for 2026. And they're professional athletes, sign contracts to World Fitness Project, and they don't have to do qualifiers. Their season is laid out for them in advance, and they earned it based upon their performance in 2026. And that's all we're trying to create, is we're trying to legitimize the space. We're trying to give brand recognition to athletes. We're giving them opportunities to where they can set their season schedule and go train and be professional athletes, and not worry about, I had a cold this weekend, or I caught the flu and I'm screwed. And that's nobody's fault. That's just is what it is. So that's kind of where we're going in the space.
These pro athletes have this choice now, because they have signed contracts to compete in the two, at the minimum, the 2 tour events here, right? And yet they are then going to say, I'm going to take the risk, and I will go through the Open, and I will go through the semifinals, or whatever we're calling it there for the CrossFit space, hoping that I'm healthy on those weekends and, not hurt, and also trying for the games. But I think in the back of their mind, there is some, I don't want to say satisfaction, but some comfort knowing that my big responsibility is being in shape for, let's start with Tour Event 1 in Indianapolis. So I like that. I like, and point wise, it's like you said, Live Golf or for F1, but anybody that has a season that accumulates points, be it, even PGA Tour with FedEx Cup playoffs, or, a carryover and an accumulation of points throughout these events. You can have a bad event, you can have a bad weekend, but you're still, you're going to tour event number 2.
That's exactly right. And that's that's what we're trying to accomplish. And the athletes that signed know that message is very difficult to get to the public because we've had those conversations individually and selling who we are and what we're putting forward to the athletes. And so you'll start to see that messaging roll out more and more over time, getting the challengers to understand that. There's only so much you can say in an Instagram post without, without getting railroaded.
Yeah.
You guys know how that goes.
Right.
So our message to the signed athletes spoke for itself because we basically signed everybody we talked to, and then within reason, and then from that point it's the messaging to the challenger. If you didn't get an invite, we can't invite everybody, but we're giving you an opportunity to go do the qualifier, come compete against them. We start at 0 on tour event 1. Whether you're signed or whether you're a challenger, you start at 0 on tour event 1. Go tell your story and go put your number next to your name that proves who you are, and you will be rewarded at the end of the season. And we feel like if we put our best foot forward doing this, the athletes are going to follow suit to understand that process, and time will show that we're developing that system for them.
So you have worked like a madman to secure 2 locations in a very short period of time.
Yes.
To take a step back, you are not affiliated with CrossFit. That needs to be said.
Right.
But it will be a am I allowed to say, a CrossFit like competition where that'll be event.
Yeah, the sport, CrossFit is a brand
methodology.
of fitness,
yeah.
Right. So World Fitness Project is a brand of fitness, just like CrossFit is a brand of fitness. We're going to be doing the sport of fitness. You're going to see things over time through what we're testing. It's going to look a little bit different from time to time, but yes, we are going to test, and we're going to crown the world fitness champion is what we're crowning.
Excellent. And Jason and I came upon an article that I think laid out really well the differences even between, let me get that right, the International Fitness IF3 World Championships and how they are more of a federation, and you are a professional tour. And if we can put that link in the show notes, that's a great. It was so well explained on the differences and what you're trying to achieve in your upcoming season.
Yes.
When are the qualifiers for the challengers? Is that
and
that'll be online, right?
Yeah. They're online. It's only 1 week. So we're not trying to kill everyone. We have a way to test people's fitness to get them there in a short window, and we know how to do that, and Will is good at that. And I can tell you from seeing the workouts that the people that make it they're going to have to be fit, and that's the whole point. Right. So so they kick off March 19th.
Okay. Oh, look at that. And I do believe the Open ends the 17th.
Correct.
Yes.
The Open used to be 5 weeks. We're still only 4, right?
In a very short period of time, your group has managed to mesh the calendar really well. And I think that's very impressive in A, that you were able to secure locations, but B, you could weave these tour stops plus qualifications into, the season, partly because you had a little bit of a schedule already laid out from HQ and some other events. I mean, that does help. But I like that. I absolutely like that. So do you have a counterpart in Europe that works for World Fitness Finals? So that is working really with the
we have
the final
Roger
Denmark.
Yeah, absolutely. So Roger runs a bunch of events in Europe. If you guys go to World Fitness Project, you can see his profile, and he's going to do a better job of explaining who he is than I am. But yes, I'm going to be involved in Europe. I'm still overseeing some things for that, but we needed a European boots on the ground guy that understands the culture, and making sure that when we're in Copenhagen, we're treating it and honoring the European we have more European athletes. Let me explain it. We have more international athletes than we have U.S. athletes. So our roster, if you look at it, you'll see we have less U.S. But we feel like it's very well represented across the board. So we're World Fitness Project, not U.S. Fitness Project. So you're going to see that expansion throughout time, will be continuing to expand across the globe.
Jason, I've got one here.
Keep going. Love it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this may be asking a lot for a future, but can you envision, without overdoing it, can you envision more tour stops in a year than just the 2 plus the final? Or do you come to a point where we don't want to put too much on the athletes?
Yeah, there is a point that you don't want to do too many. I can tell you there is expansion plans as early as 2026. I can't tell you where, and I can't tell you the number. But we're going to have a season put together well before what people are used to.
And given the timeline, the compressed timeline that you had to work with, I'm sure having 12, 15 months to now to do something in the future will feel like a dream.
Oh, it's going to feel like heaven. I love it. Yeah, just getting past Indianapolis Tour 1 is going to be like awesome. So, and I apologize for kind of moving around. I've got to go catch a plane, so I'm going to continue to talk as I'm kind of gathering my bag.
Absolutely.
I apologize. So
Love it.
Can we pull in for, since we talk a lot about the Masters and you have so much experience in that space, how does the community event work? Or when do you have ideas that, the specific community
for
rollout?
now, is running as duos. So teams of 2. What we didn't want to do is come in and step on anybody's toes. And we wanted to come in and still have representation from that division, which we feel like is important. That's why we have teams of 4 and teams of 2. And so in order to do that, it's open registration. We don't have a qualifier. We didn't want to add that to the table quite yet. So that registration opens March 1st. We have 2 different divisions. There's same-sex teams of 2. And so, 35 to 49 and 50 plus. And it's first come, first serve. So it's only 10 athletes, 10 teams.
10 teams
per division, per sex, correct.
Okay.
And it's the same thing on the age group by teams. So TENF. So we call those.
Gotcha.
So we're calling them duos.
Okay. So you don't get, excellent.
Yeah.
So for those listening, it's going to be a mad dash, like you're going the old fashioned way of chasing down concert tickets or something like that. You better be ready to.
We're going to have 30 what we call elite teams, 30 intermediate teams, and these are teams of 4, co-ed teams of 4, and 30 scale teams. And then we're going to have our teams of 2 duo mastering and teams in 2 different divisions. So that's going to be our field of 520, and then our 100 individual pro athletes.
Will people be able to get a lot of information from your website? I know initially everybody's been driven to social media to basically,
the
I heard
website
Will interview.
Just got redirected. And so there's information is going to be flowing on that very quickly. Excellent. We've got, once we got the pros signed, got everybody done, got everybody's stories told, got Roger introduced, got me introduced. Now we're going to be the challengers registration is going on right now to go and register to try to be a challenger. That's live. And so then you're going to see the community events starting to run out. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Jason, that's amazing.
You go.
Yeah, as you're getting in the elevator, we're going to lose you. We appreciate you. Thank you. Safe travels.
Thank you so much.
We'll circle back.
Yeah, guys. So I appreciate it, but that's kind of where we're at with that. And sorry for cutting you short. We've got to go catch a flight to St. Louis, and weather is crazy, and Will's yelling at me, and
go do it, man.
They're worried they're going to miss their plane. So
take care of yourself.
Anytime you guys want me back on, I'd love to answer any other questions.
I think we will, because there will be more questions. We appreciate it. Have a safe flight.
Thanks guys.
Man. Thank you. Bye. See ya.
Bye-bye. Be sure.
Okay, we're still recording, so
yes,
really quick, we'll just do a quick outro. We're already, we've got a long episode here, but they've really accomplished something pretty amazing in just a few months. And I think you'll agree with me that Jason is an incredible human being. I mean, he is intentional in his decisions. When I heard that Jason was there, the director of events, or I'm not sure what his actual title is, but that he's in charge of that, I knew that whatever they're doing is big enough and enticing enough for Jason to say yes to it. That's, in my mind, that's when I know they were signing athletes, but for me, when I heard Jason was doing that, I was like, oh, this is really big. This is really significant. Jason has a tremendous background, tremendous experience, and he wouldn't leave everything that he was doing and the momentum that he had with Legends and the games and all of that. He would never leave that to do something else unless it was, truly something significant. So good for him. Really excited to see where this goes. I think they've got a good guy in charge. I think related to Masters athletes with us,
right.
Jason, I think we always will have a sweet spot in his world, in the same way that Bob was a Masters games competitor and is in charge of Legends and the games, and Joe as well. They have a sweet spot for Masters because that's where they came from. I think Jason has that as well. So I'm hopeful that this can take off and potentially even create opportunities. It will look very different for whatever they might do for Masters, but it's nice that, we'll be fully transparent. The numbers are down on CrossFit right now. The numbers for the Open are down. I don't think the momentum of CrossFit is gone. I think it's just slightly different. But to know that there's another brand building something very significant and really cool gives me additional hope that the sport that I love, the fitness regimen that I love, the competitive nature of everything that you and I both love, has more than one potential outlet in the future, and that's nice. It's nice. I'm hopeful.
That just because the way that there could be a season laid out for, you and a partner on a team, in some of these events, and then to backfill if you're crazy and you love to compete. You and I are coming off of a very good experience down in Charleston, and we know how Wodapalooza now has a second event, and they seem to have kind of righted the ship in terms of their inclusion of Masters athletes. And his event, Monster Games, Legends, and we haven't even talked because we don't have a lot of details yet, but what Fort Wayne is turning into with the pairs championship through CrossFit, as long as you're signed up for the Open. So there are quite a number of promising outlets for competition for Masters athletes. And I think that's important to take away. Now, we still want more details, but I'll tell you what, he was able to secure in a very short period of time a couple of locations. And we've talked to Bob in the past how difficult that is when you're given a year for one. And he did two in 2 months?
However many months.
Like
it was amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Rick, that was great. Jason could hold, there's so much going on there that we could have taken another hour of his time. So really grateful for him. I'm glad we got him on. Thanks for coming on yourself and making the time for it. And next week, guys, I think, Rick, we will probably have on the agenda a recap of Fittest of the Coast, which was truly remarkable. We'll have an Open prediction. I think it's time for us to do some predictions for the Open. And I think that we should actually, probably you and I bring 3 workouts we think will be, 25.1, 25.2, 25.3, and then reward ourselves, or maybe bet a pizza on it. Whoever is closest between you and I owes each other a pizza. Something, we got to wager something.
Fun. I'll tell you what. Yes, we didn't do our traditional pizza, even though we did have dinner together in Charleston. Yeah. We didn't do a traditional pizza because you were still competing and it was late that night. So whatever.
Yep.
So let's do that. And you're coming from a programmer's perspective. So I have a lot of ground to make up. So believe me, we'll see.
It's going to be luck. All luck.
We know there's a repeat. So we all have access to the same information, at least for one.
Yes.
All right.
It'll be fun. All right, Rick, we'll see you next week.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Masters in Motion podcast. We'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, get bolder, not older.